I didn't have time to ask you for one, so I was like,
Oh no, so, I went to one of the things you're going to learn about me in this interview is that I went to film school. So I got a whole page on my website, khalidcares.com/media. It's a whole EPK there. Just download pics, everything you need.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend Live podcast with your host Ricardo Rice and my co-host
Simone Cherie.
Oh my God, when is the last time we were in studio?
Oh, 2022.
I mean you, not me, because I was here last week. So I mean you, not me. I was here last week, but you.
Probably different. Probably different.
Actually, the last time we were here, you were by yourself. You were with Karen.
Oh, that's
that was running
right.
for office.
That's right.
Kudos. You did a good job. I meant to tell you that. You did a good job.
As best as I could.
I mean, you've been with me for how long now? Like going on 4 years. If you can't do this solo, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. But y'all did a very good job. So it is nice to be back in studio with the people and the table and
on
the
this
mic.
cold day.
I know. Today sucks. It's freezing. All right. So we're going to get right into it. So what is on the rundown?
So we're going to cover some big stories. We want to talk a little bit about just how many mass shootings there have been this year in 2023. We are only 6 weeks in, and there's a lot to cover this week. And also maybe some conversations about solutions and what we think we could be looking at doing. And I know that we have a very important guest here who's also been very outspoken about this issue. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We also, in our very own county, have made headlines for the last couple of years because of our former president and allegations about election fraud, and also a grand
who should not be spoken of. It's like Rumpelstiltskin. We say his name 3 times, he's going to magically show up.
Yes,
so we're not doing that.
Yes, but a grand jury investigation that there's actually a lot of traction in as of this past week. So if you've had a chance to read the report, this is the shortest report you will probably ever get the opportunity to read when it comes to something that's important. So very digestible, but we'll cover that a little bit, and then we can talk a little bit about the administration, and then move on to our guest.
All right, so we're going to let him go ahead and introduce himself before we jump into everything. So our guest for today, I'm not even going to say your name. I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
What's going on, beautiful people? It is your man, the people's mayor of Atlanta's new twin city and the blackest city in America, South Fulton, Georgia. My name is Mayor Khalid. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Absolutely, our pleasure.
Thank you for being here.
I had to reschedule him like 25 times, but we're so thankful he's here. I know, he's so popular, isn't he?
I'm excited. I'm excited too because so we do edutainment as well. I think that's a good way to put it. So I know there's a lot that we want to hear from you, but also a lot we're hoping that you can help to educate folks on as well.
I love that.
I love your background.
Love that. Edutainment. Let's do it.
For sure. So let's start with if you have not been paying attention, which I do not blame you whatsoever, there were 3 students shot to death and 5 critically injured before a gunman took his own life at Michigan State University. This was the first mass shooting at the school this year, but there have been 71 year to date in America based on the definition of mass shootings. There's definitely not been any year that there's been 67 or more in 6 weeks. So that does make this a record. There's the Gun Violence Archive, gunviolencearchive.org. If you want to get a better understanding about what this means in terms of mass shootings, it does not include community violence. But there are actually survivors of the shooting who have now been second-time survivors.
Seriously?
One of these survivors in particular attended Sandy Hook Elementary, where we know there was a horrible shooting just over a decade ago. Yes. Another who also survived a mass shooting that took place in El Paso, Texas, strangely enough, not too long ago. So a lot of conversations about this. I know that you, what we were able to read a little bit is about you working with another activist and artist to address gun violence as it pertains to youth in a town hall very recently. Mayor Khalid, so would love to talk a little bit about how you feel as well, Ricardo, about violence, about gun violence, about maybe what your expectations were, what we should be doing, and how this is just kind of becoming white noise at this point. I think in the American subconscious, it's becoming so common.
I think it became a reality because I substitute at a charter school, and we did a firearm practice. Mm-hmm. And I think it became real for me. I was like, if this actually happens, like, what does this look like? Like, we had to make the kids run from one side to the other side, huddle up, close the blinds, and trying to time them. And the class that I had that day, I think, was 2nd grade. So it's like trying to teach them that this, because, they want to play in lab because they think it's like a fire drill. I'm like, no, somebody could actually get on campus and start shooting, and you guys can't talk. And I was like, in that moment, I was like, I can't imagine what it'd be like with a class full of 2nd graders if somebody comes on campus and starts shooting. Like, I can't fathom. But then on the other thought, I was like, well, how do you deter that? Because, people have learned how to mask stuff so well. It's like one time, like, well, yeah, they were acting funny and they were looking up stuff online. People have gotten a lot more crafty with this now. So it's like, what can you do to really deter this? So honestly, I'm at a loss for words. I'm actually interested to see what the mayor has to say.
Yeah, before we get to solutions, like just we'd love
Well,
to hear your
honestly, I think that this is a spiritual problem, right? Like, gun violence is a problem. There are too many guns everywhere. And every time we, have this conversation about gun control, people say, well, there's nothing you can do about guns, right? Just because you can't do everything doesn't mean that you shouldn't do anything. We could stop some of the guns, right? You talked about, Ricardo, you talked about drilling kids for mass shooting events, right? So we are putting, if you think about this just from a spiritual standpoint, right? From the point of the law of attraction, we are spending time practicing for tragedy, practicing for violence, but we don't make the same level of investment in trying to prevent that violence, right? We spend all of this money on policing to respond to violence, but we don't spend the same amount of money on social programs or social workers, right? Like if you think about this, so from a city government perspective, right? The police are the only service that operates 24/7. And when you call, they have to come, whether you have money or not.
It's true.
What if you could call 911 every time you needed a therapist, right? Every time you and your mother were going through something, or you saw your father drinking too much, or, just whatever's going on in the homes. There's so much going on in our children's homes that is making this violence spiral out of control. There's so many people who are struggling to afford to live. Like I was talking to someone the other day. He's got like a beautiful loft in Castleberry Hill. He pays like $1,700 a month. I don't even know how people are paying $1,700 a month for a one bedroom, $2,000 for a one bedroom.
I can't fathom it.
He said everybody in this building is running stunts. Like you can't, because you can't have a regular job. You can't be a 23-year-old. There are not enough jobs for our 23-year-olds for everyone to be paying $1,900 a month in rent. So people driving Uber, they are, renting the rooms out on like Airbnb. Like everybody's got a side hustle, because it's the divide between the richest and the poorest of us has just gotten too big. It's ridiculous. We got to regulate this stuff. We got to regulate rent. We got to invest in our young people. We've got to invest in. We cannot police our way to prosperity. We cannot police our way to happiness. So like we gotta make these investments.
Do you think that this is something that maybe our current administration could have done more about, or could have done sooner? Right. So I know that there's federal. I know that we have our state officials, and we talk a lot about state politics here. But there are 22 states where there are much stricter gun laws than there are at the federal level, and then there are elsewhere. For example, in Texas, trying to get an emergency protection order when you think that, for example, somebody's been drinking too much, somebody has access to weapons, virtually impossible unless that person has already committed an act of violence, in which case you're already messed up. But is the state, and should the state be the people who we are looking to do stuff like that, to change things like that, or should there be an executive order? Should we be expecting more out of our federal government?
We should be expecting more out of government at every level, because we are the government, right? These are not, and that's what I always tell people. The president and the folks in Congress, they're not people who just make the rules and we don't have anything to do with them. We sent them there. They are our employees. The people in your city council, they are your employees. The people in your county, they are your employees. And so we should be doing more. We should be doing more at every level, and I think we can do more. You were asking about, when the right time is. There's this African proverb that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So we can start today. Like there's money available today. There are things that we can do, and we just can't let. I think that the enemy of justice isn't injustice. Sometimes the enemy of justice is just hopelessness, just this feeling that like nothing can be done. And if we get rid of that, then we can really start doing things.
Yeah, I think that's more than fair.
This is such a tricky thing, because it's like, okay, this is not new. And like I said, it's almost getting to a point where I'm not even gonna lie. When I saw this one, it was just kind of like, oh, another one. The only reason that I looked deeper into it is because one of my friends, that was her school, her alma mater. So she was really distraught about it. And I was like, oh, well, let me take a gander at it. But then I was like, okay, well, it's the same layout. There's a shooter on campus. Some people will make it, some people won't. I kind of think I agree. Just like this is becoming like normal.
So from the country, full disclosure, before we close out this discussion, you must own several guns, yes?
No, I don't own
No.
any. I don't own
By
any.
choice?
Yeah.
And why is that? Do you mind sharing with people? For educational purposes.
Yeah, where you from?
I'm from the country, so I'm from South Carolina. So I'm.
Where in South Carolina?
Hampton, Varnville. It's no.
And you ain't got no gun, bro.
I was never a deer hunter, so I didn't do that. I climbed a couple of trees in my day, but to actually carry I'm not gonna lie, the thought of me carrying a gun just seems very weird.
How many cousins you got that got guns?
Every one of them, including my dad. And my brother, we share a house, and he has one too. So
you got it's a gun in your house then.
Yeah,
it's a gun in your house.
He carries it everywhere. So I
So he didn't have a gun. See, Mr. Rice has security. He has people who travel with him.
That's what we doing there.
He got detail. I don't have. I'm trying to get me a little detail. It's dangerous out here in these streets.
Sure, when you pulled up, there'd be some guys with the earpieces and stuff. But Mayor Khalid is gangster. I've seen him in the streets, so he's very gangster. So he's not. He doesn't need it. I keep saying I should, because somebody asked me yesterday, well, do you go to a gun range? I don't have a gun. And they looked at me like, why don't you have a gun? But they look at me the same way when I say I don't drink or smoke. So I'm just this unicorn that just clearly
you as a pastor in a past life.
Wow, that's
well the reason
holiness is still right.
You know that
all
all of
different.
the deacons are strapped. But so here's my question. So for that reason, right, one of the things that has come up outside of background checks in the conversation, people always say, yes, background checks. We've been hearing about background checks for many, many years. And maybe they're enough, maybe they're not. I know background checks will tell you if someone has done something already that should lead you to believe they can't carry a gun.
But I'm saying and not to cut you off, but let's go deeper than that, right? Like a lot of times at these schools, a lot of times we hear about these people. Somebody know, oh yeah, that dude Ricardo, we always knew he was a little crazy. You know what I mean? Or that girl Simone, like I mean,
so to that point,
a lot of times when you dig in and you talk to friends and family, there is usually someone who knows that person is going through something. The question is, do they have the access to resources? We could bring this back to the A. Like I have a friend that's a social worker, right, in Fulton County schools. He got like 3 schools. He's not even just assigned to just one school. Mm-hmm. Are we putting the same resources behind prevention that we are putting behind response? Not. Let's not wait till we got a reason to put somebody on a watch list. Let's make sure that we have people in our schools and talking to our families and helping people work through emotional problems like years before they become.
But I think to that point though, here's what it is that like there is no like flag for yes to you, no to you, because the truth is our circumstances change. And we could all be a year or a piece of bad news away from becoming someone who should not be able to carry a gun anymore.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said about like the ongoing evaluation, right? And I think this is a lazy thing. I think we're too lazy to put people through processes more than once. Like we want to give people a driver's exam once when you ain't the same at 86 as you were at 60.
And listen, but even that, like we give people.
It should be an ongoing skills assessment.
In order for me to drive the car that I came in, I had to take a test. Mm-hmm. I don't have to take a test to buy a gun. I can go buy an AK. Don't know nothing about semi-automatic versus automatic. Don't know how to use the safety or not use the safety. Mm-hmm. I can just go in the store, fill out a piece of paper, and buy this deadly weapon.
That's true.
Never have to be certified on it. It's too easy. You can carry them everywhere. All of these data have shown that when every state where they've had constitutional carry, they've seen a rise in crime. Here in Atlanta, in a metro area, everybody's getting their cars broken into. I was out at the club one night with the fellas, right? And my homeboy had he had 2 MacBooks. They busted in the car, did not take the MacBooks. They went straight for the glove box. They were looking for guns. People just breaking cars. But because so many people carry guns in their cars, there's so many break-ins happening now where they're just looking for guns.
Where was his Apple? Where were his iPads? Please don't tell me they were on a seat or something.
They were in his book bag. But what I'm telling you is when they busted in the window the book bag with the iPads was on the ground. Like when we saw that the car was broken into, the first thing he did was like, oh my God, my iPads. They weren't looking for the iPads. They looking for weapons so that they can, because you can commit a crime with a stolen weapon and it can't be traced back to you, right? You can do whatever dirt you're going to do with a stolen weapon. And since everybody just got them all over the place now, I just going to break in your car and see. I know so many people now that when they go out, they don't even lock their doors anymore. They just want people to just open the door and look for whatever you're going to look for.
That's happening in the Northwest a lot, yeah. Just to prevent, my cousin did this. She works for the city or for the county. Broke into her car. She said that's why people nowadays just leave their windows down. Because it's so much money to get your windows replaced in your entire vehicle.
I get the logic. The thought of me walking away from my car and it's not
remarkable.
Your insurance gonna go with all of that.
It's
You'll
be penalized for it. So they just leave their windows down.
Actually, back to that comment that you made about education. Remember, we talk to education people all the time, and education seems to be the first thing they cut from when it comes to money and downside. Education is the first thing they cut from. So I don't know how we got to a place where education is at the bottom of the totem pole. That's the problem.
Well, we are spending a lot of money, are we not? Like, don't we spend a lot of money on education as it is?
No, in some places we do.
It's a big piece of Georgia's budget.
It is, but they find so many other ways to do stuff with that money. The reality is, because I'm seeing this a lot more now, is charter schools have started taking a bigger role in education, which is good and bad because, the one that I work at is great. They have a great culture. It's predominantly African-American. I've been amazed at the things they do, from affirmations to all kinds of other stuff. But at the same token, on the other side of the world, what are they doing like in Buckhead, where there may not be as many African-American kids? Like, what does that look like? Because the stuff that they do in charter schools, and I've seen it firsthand, I would have never seen in a public school. So that's kind of scary, too. So, I don't know. It's the whole thing. I don't know. Prevention is great, and we absolutely need it, but you'd have to have a stronger fight for education to get money to go to a program like that. And they're already fighting just to get the basics. Because, Jason talks about it all the time. So it's
I like that. I think it's the same conversation. I want to move to really quickly the Trump grand jury investigation. So this will be a first in our 200.
His name is He Who Shall Not Be Spoken.
He who shall. Well, come on now.
He Who Shall Not Be Spoken.
He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Exactly. He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Going Harry Potter
a level of importance that I just don't want to give it to
He's
it.
like Voldemort. Or the last
Don.
president.
Can we say Don?
Really?
Old Don. Can we just make it small? I don't want to make him sound important. A first in our 246-year history as a nation will be a possible criminal prosecution of our former president. DA Fani Willis will get to decide what charges to bring because the grand jury determined a few things that are important to remember. There was no election fraud. There was no mass proof of fraud in the presidential election cycle. So that's done. But the potential charge that was revealed out of this report that just came out is perjury. So perjury is one of many charges that could be brought. A majority of the jurors in this grand jury agreed so. And this investigation has actually been open since 2021. So since shortly after that demand happened from the individual to our Secretary of State that we need to go ahead and find 11,700 plus votes. So this is where we are. There was 9 pages of this report released. There's a lot of redactions, names and stuff removed. But what is very clear is that perjury is a recommendation from the grand jury. And then we'll move forward from there.
We're going to charge a man that lies consistently, and we're shocked that perjury was what they came
with
up
lying. So here's the thing.
Shocked.
It's important for, I think, maybe for a Democrat who's an elected official and who probably wants to be reelected, I would assume, to have the cover of a grand jury directing this charge, so that she can say, well, it's not political. I'm heeding the advice of my grand jury of these 23, citizens of Fulton County. And I think from there, it's just a question of, well, what does that look like? I'm not going to say politically. Well, no, I guess politically for the presidential election. What do we think that means if we move forward? Other than this just being a historic event in general, do we have any thoughts about this? No surprises? Are we looking for more? Are we just eagerly awaiting a criminal prosecution? How do we both feel?
I just feel like January 6th came and went. I don't think we're ever going to get any real justice at what should have happened, which amazingly in my head, in an alternate reality, the multiverse, in the multiverse, I ponder what it would have looked like if a bunch of African Americans had done this, what this picture would look like now. Because right now we're just kind of skating around. I feel like people mention it because they're supposed to. But if we're honest, January 6th came and went, and that's just what it is.
Well, here's the thing. We actually we know exactly what it looks like when a bunch of African Americans do this. We got in the streets every time we're killed by police officers, every time we're victims of blue on black crime.
Yeah, but we overthrew the
Capitol, though. Shot. But I'm saying like we don't have to just imagine it. When we get upset about being treated unfairly by this country, we get shot with tear gas. we get put in jail, we get killed. Like, that's what happens. So I mean, if we're gonna have the conversation, like, let's really have the conversation. Like, this is really a conversation about race. In 2012, when Mitt Romney lost to Barack Obama, the Republican Party, the Republican National Committee got together and commissioned this study. I can't remember the name of this study, but basically what came out is that by 2040, this would be a majority minority country, and that Republicans would not be able to win a national election again if things were trending in the way that they were trending without reaching out. It was called an autopsy. It was the autopsy on Mitt Romney's campaign. If they did not start reaching out to people of other races. They started to do that for a little while. They found Nikki Haley. They got Bobby Jindal. He gave that horrible response to the State of the Union. I don't know if y'all remember that. He was sweating. Saturday Night Live did a whole thing about it. But that was one wing of the party that was like, yes, let's diversify. They went and found Tim Scott in South Carolina. He would coon out with, for the rest of them. Yes, I said it. But like, another wing of the party was like, no, we're going to go harder towards our base. For 400 years, working class white people have been told that this country belongs to them and that they will always be taken care of, and they will be taken care of ahead of black people. Like, they got the union jobs first, they got minimum wages and all of these like health jobs with health care and benefit. The average, I don't know if you know that here in Georgia, the minimum wage for a home healthcare worker is $2.15 an hour. All of the people that are exempt from minimum wage laws, like home healthcare workers, fast food workers, service industry workers, those are all of the jobs that black people did coming out of slavery. This system isn't broken. It is working exactly the way that it was designed. And there was a glitch in the system in 2008. A brother, an N-word, walked into the White House and people lost their ish. And they responded by electing he who shall not be named and saying, we're going to roll this clock back. And then when he lost, they showed up at the Capitol and said, this is our country. This is ours. Y'all are not going to shoot us. We're going to walk up in here. We're going to find who we want to find. Ain't nobody going to prosecute us because this is ours. And so we are heading to a place where we have got to be ready. Like, and I'm gonna say some revolutionary stuff. Y'all can edit it out or not, but like, there are people training.
We'll let you know.
There are people who do. I just said you can buy AK and not get any training on it. There are people who buy AKs and they get training. And they got compounds in Georgia and Minnesota and Michigan. They almost kidnapped the whole governor. They are getting ready. They are ready to die for their country because this is theirs. So the question is, what are we ready to do as a people? Like, what are we ready? And I would love Fonnie Willis, but there are people that are getting killed. Like, what are we going to do? I love what you're doing with Donald Trump. What are you doing for Rayshard Brooks and his family? Alexia Christian. Like, we could start calling out all of the names. Oscar Kane, Jamarian Robinson. There are plenty of people who need justice inside Fulton County. You don't have to go all the way to Washington to get justice.
No, absolutely. But so to that point of like looking inward, right? There's a few ways I feel like inside the tools and the resources that we could have access to or do have access to, depending on how you look at it, that we also could be utilizing a lot more to our own benefit, just as a people in general. And part of it is political. I think our political capital and political will. We talked a lot about during the 2020 election, and maybe even a little bit before that, the turnout. And we talked a lot about the people who stayed home and the level of despondency, even among those of us who do have voting rights, which is not all of us. Especially in places like Florida, especially here, right? You've got a conviction, you're somebody who cannot be voting, and which is very, very clear and very well outlined and very well documented that it was supposed to be that way. However, for those of us who do, what about those of us who choose not to? And what we could be doing better amongst one another for the resources that we do have access to claim more political power.
I don't think we really, when you have industry conversations, and I'm sure you know this, I don't think people really understand what political power looks like. Us, like the average Joe, like what really could happen if we really started sending people to the Senate and the House that look like us. That not only look like us, because all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but people who really have spent time in their communities. People really know who they are. People really trust them. If we really started sending them to, these places, these outlets to really voice for us, because I find it amazing that a Marjorie Taylor can keep her area that tight locked that she can stay in office and just do whatever she wants to do. I find it amazing because remember we interviewed Marcus when he came. He was running against her. But I'm just like, it's amazing to me that she has her area that on lock that she can do and say whatever she wants. And, nobody says anything because her and her buddies are going to rub shoulders. Yeah, you got taken off. But I'm going to put you back. When we get back in power, I'm going to put you back. It's just crazy.
But that's because her people support her. They show up and they vote. I ran for mayor. So for those of y'all who don't know, a little primer about the city of South Fulton, we probably should have started about like that. We were incorporated in 2017, so we were used to just be Fulton County. There are a lot of places in Gwinnett, a lot of places that are still unincorporated. I always tell people, if you want to know what city or what county, wherever you live, call the police. The name on the side of the car, that's where you live. People be like, oh, I thought I lived in College Park. I said, have you ever called the police and College Park showed up? They're like, no. I said, what name was on the side? They said Fulton County. You never lived in College Park. You lived in Fulton County, and now you're in the city of South Fulton. So we became a city. We are the same size as Atlanta. Atlanta's about 109 square miles. We're about 90 square miles. With a population that is 92% African American, we are the blackest city in America. I ran on a slogan that we should be black on purpose, period. Which means not just being unapologetically black about, in our demographics, being intentionally black in our demographics, because we are that way because we moved to an area. A lot of people will say, and I know this is a long answer, but a lot of people will say, you shouldn't call yourself the blackest city in America. Like, how would you feel about like Forsyth? They used to call themselves the whitest county in America. Like, that wasn't cool. It wasn't cool because you killed people and you burned crosses in their yard and you stole their land. That's how you got that way. We became the blackest because we just started moving down there and all y'all moved away.
Right.
We ain't
So
burnt. You know what I'm saying?
right.
We ain't burnt. And so
Right.
I said, and here's where I'm going with this. I said, let's be the blackest city in America. Let's not just be intentionally black in our demographics. Let's be black with intention in our policy making.
So that's why I want to make this official transition here. So I think we can move out of this to, I was going to say, you have the perfect background to have this conversation, right? About what we could do, what we need to do about electing people who are of the people, who are of the place that they want to represent, so they actually do represent that place, and about, I think, some of the challenges and maybe even some of the triumphs that come along with breaking new ground and doing something new as well, right? Because there's so much to be said about maybe a long existing established city and something that is also very much new and very much being formed and shaped by the vision that you're bringing to it. So can we talk maybe about your vision, right? About what brought you to your now role, to becoming the mayor, and your background for folks who don't know it, because I've seen you described in lots of really brief ways as an activist or as the first BLM activist to be elected to office. But I also know that your journey crosses a couple of different states and there's a lot to you as well. So can you just give us your backstory?
I'll say I did come out of the movement for Black Lives, and 2015, 2014, around that time I was in law school. Mike Brown got killed in 2015. I had dropped out of law school. I was doing music because I'm a brother from Atlanta, so we all do music. We don't all do music, but I did music. I come out of entertainment. I went to film school. I was an actor.
Dropped out of law school. What brought you to law school?
I just got tired of being broke. I was doing a lot of, I have always been a community activist. You get into my bio since middle school. I've been organizing protests and stuff. And so I'd always worked for these nonprofits. They didn't get paid. Nobody, the only people that seem to get paid in a lot of nonprofits are the executive directors, the management, and they were all attorneys. And so I was like, I'm gonna go to law school. There's some connection. Okay. Katrina happened around that same time. So I was seeing all of these ways where people were just not being held accountable and the law was not working for us. So that's why I went. The movement for Black Lives happened. A whole bunch of other things happened. I got involved with Bernie Sanders' campaign. That was my first campaign. And, Bernie told people to run for office. And then when the city of South Fulton was formed, right, I was I was born and raised. Don't sound like it right now, but trust, I am from the Nat. Like you catch me on Wednesday night at VVS, like you'll be like, oh, he from the Nat. But I was born and raised out there. So okay. South Fulton, the thing to know about, I think that's most important to know about me is that South Fulton is my hometown. I ain't just doing this for clout. I don't plan to ever run for anything higher than this office. I am the mayor of my hometown, and that's like what every boy wants. So I was looking at the map as South Fulton was forming. We were out in the streets. We were doing all these things in the movement for Black Lives. And we had transcended just talking about police. We were talking about housing justice. We were talking about domestic violence, violence against women. We were talking about investing in education for our young people. And, we were talking about all the things. And I looked at the map and I said, this city, I grew up around here. I was like Cascade, Butner, Camp Creek. I was like, oh, this city's going to be hella black. I didn't know it was going to be the blackest city in America, but I knew it was going to be hella black. And I went back to the people in the movement, and I was like, if there was ever a place that we could try and roll out these policies, this is the place. And we won't even have to argue with anybody about it because we in the super majority. But back to this conversation about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I came up with this slogan, we should be black on purpose. When I tell you almost nobody wanted me to use that slogan. Everybody was so afraid that I was gonna make white people uncomfortable. Ain't but like 3% white people in our city, but they were concerned about investment. They were like, well, people aren't gonna invest in our city. And I said, well, look around. What Fortune 5 companies do we have here now? Our biggest employers are Walmart, World Changers Church, and a call center by Bank of America. And some warehouses, like people aren't. People
so talk
ain't
about
coming.
How that happened, because like in the early 2000s, right? Like there was the formation of all these other cities on the north side, right? So was that before? Maybe before South Fulton was a conversation, or maybe
no, South Fulton was a conversation.
Was a conversation.
We were on the ballot with Sandy Springs, Johns Creek, Chattahoochee Hills down in the south, and there was another one. We didn't form because we were afraid that we couldn't lead. And we were afraid that we wouldn't have enough money. We were in our own way. And that's what this whole campaign is about. When you look at, for all you want to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene, for all you want to say about Donald Trump, they be for their people. Yeah. They're like, this is for us. I'm going to make sure that America first. I'm going to make sure that we're taken care of. When do we stand up and say, we have a $172 million budget. If 92% of our city is black, 92% of these contracts need to be going to black people. Period.
So can we talk about, for people who don't know Fulton County, working at Fulton County for a very short amount of time, there was I came to understand a lot more clearly the sort of divide between the northern and southern parts of the county commissioners, what their backgrounds are, how well they represent that particular area. Like, can you talk more, just give people a kind of an overview about maybe what the economic picture looks like or what the corporate picture looks like on either side?
The story of South Fulton is the story of South DC, of the South Bronx, of the South Side of Chicago, of the South Side of LA. It's the side of town where all the black people live and no investment is made. It's where you have an airport, some landfills, and a bunch of warehouses. Like, no hospital, or maybe one hospital that's not that great. Like this is the case in all of these South Side cities. So this is what we are doing in South Fulton is showing how we can be self-sufficient. If people are not going to invest in us, then we're going to turn inward and invest in ourselves. We became a city so that we could take control of our tax dollars and control of our resources, and that that is what we're doing. I will say this for what might be. For all the stories of drama that people try and tell about South Fulton, we've had 3-4 years now of double-digit decreases in crime. Crime going up everywhere, and all these shootings and things that happen, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, they happen in Atlanta. They're not happening in South Fulton, right? Like we have a median income that's $10,000 higher. Like we are. South Fulton. Don't sleep on South Fulton. That's all I'm saying. We have some great things going on. We have a great quality of life. We don't have like the traffic. You can still see trees. This is a funny story, but I was on a date last night, and and the lady was like,
Went
"There's."
well?
It was nice. It was nice.
But
But
living in these streets.
but the girl was like, there are those stars? I was like, yes. She had not seen the stars because she lived in Atlanta. I was like, yeah, you can still see the stars out here. Like it's nice out here. So
what does the future look like? How do you envision? I've heard this described in learning a little bit more about you, or at least about the race. I've heard you describe a vision that sounds a lot like what we probably would just call Wakanda.
absolutely.
So what does the future look like, and how far off is that future?
And doesn't include vibranium.
It doesn't include vibranium because really what we have what we already need, which is melanin. We are the most creative, hardest working, ingenious people on the earth. We are the earth's original people. We are not that far away. South Fulton, a lot of what people associate with Atlanta as the Black Mecca, those folks actually live in South Fulton. So Young Dro, the town hall I did, he lives in South Fulton. Candy from the Housewives, the late great Congressman John Lewis, Ludacris, they all live in the city of South Fulton. We are home to the 6A statewide champions for football in Langston Hughes, the 6A statewide champions for basketball at Tri-Cities, the one-act play, the best actor in the state at Tri-Cities, track championships at Westlake. Like, our kids excel in everything that they do with half the resources. We are going to give them all the resources and just watch them blossom. And that is the future of our city. Is our greatest natural resource is our own people. And so we're just going to invest in our people and do great things.
I think what stood out for me, for you, let me ask you this. How old are you?
I am 46.
Praise God.
You're 3 years older than me. Okay. Yeah. That's the promise you made to, what is it, Condia Perry, to move into Camelot condominiums.
Yeah.
How did that go? Like I saw that, I was like, wait,
it was
what?
crazy.
Like, you never think of a mayor moving into like a really hood complex. Like, so the thought of you, I was like, I don't.
It was crazy. So what most people don't know is that I was already living in a hood complex. I was living in Pine Street condos, and the minute I moved out, the shooting got a little worse over there. But no, you watch these movies like Head of State or, just whatever. And you're just like, I wish that we could really have, a president. I wish we really could have a leader that would like say the things and do the things. And so I said to myself, when I run for this office, like, I'm going to be a real N-word. Like, I'm going to do all the things. Right. And so I was in a debate, and folks were asking me what I thought should happen with Camelot. And I was like, hey, I've been out there like multiple times. Remember, I'm from here. So Camelot, Beacon Ridge, I know people. Like, I got people that stay out there before I moved out there. You know what I'm saying? And they were telling me, people were calling me to come out there. And I was like, I think we should tear the whole thing down. This woman, Condia Perry, came to one of the debates, and and when the question came up, and I said, I think we should tear the whole thing down. She said, I don't think you've seen all of Camelot, and you should come and live there. And really, they're good, hard, honest working people. Because I think part of what happens is that we in this country, we have criminalized poverty. We think that people that are poor because they are bad people, because they are lazy, because they don't want to work. Let me tell you something. Like, I don't know if you've ever worked at a McDonald's. Them people work hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever worked at a UPS.
No.
Them people work hard.
Like, I was a college waitress.
I have worked at waitressing is hard.
Well, and
yeah,
look,
but I don't know about
but I don't
McDonald's.
want minimum. But I couldn't have lived on minimum wage.
That's what I'm saying.
I like the
like,
tip structure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's these people. These are good, honest people. They work hard. And I was like, okay. So I moved out. I said it, and I will tell you, the night that I won. So I was a councilman first. I was one of the founding members of city council, and I represented Old Nat. Okay. Where I was raised. I was raised on the north side and the south side, but mostly on the south side. So I was raised on all that. And
that's Old National Highway.
Old National Highway, for those of you all who don't know, the Nat, Old Nasty, it's Bankhead. Every city, in every city you got a Crenshaw, you got your 125th, you got your streets.
No. Remember, there was a spell in our interim studio. We were at Wade Works, which is on Old National. So that's when I learned about Old National. I'm not gonna front. Remember, I lived in Cobb for 10 years.
Right, but everybody got Crenshaw, Eastern Parkway, and Brooklyn. Everybody got a street. So Old Nat is one of those streets. But I had my election night watch party. She came to my watch party.
She was serious.
She was like, I got your apartment ready at my watch party. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I'm going to move in. So before I was even sworn into office, January 2nd, myself, my homeboy, Mark Baker, who, went on to run for Congress, Councilman Corey Reeves, who was a councilman, and a bunch of my friends, like we loaded up a truck because, I ain't got a bunch of money. I'm still that dude. Like I had my stuff in trash bags. We did the plastic bag move, and I moved from Pine Tree condos to Camelot condos. And I said that I would live there for 6 months to a year before I made a decision. And I'm gonna tell you something. It still need to be torn down. I love it.
I don't know where this is going.
Listen, I moved out. I gotta say this. I moved out in October. I didn't move out because of the shootings, though. People got killed while I was there. One of my neighbors was killed by her ex-boyfriend, shot in the head in front of her 2-year-old daughter. I didn't move out because of the rats, even though there were rats. By the time I moved out, there were rats running behind my head at night. I remember when I moved in, and see, this is what one of the things, I'm gonna take just a little time here. One of the things that we did in the movement for Black Lives, we modeled ourselves after the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. For those of you all who don't know about SNCC, look it up. John Lewis didn't just come out
Please
of
look
it.
it up.
It was just a lot of Stokely Carmichael, a lot of powerful Black people. Kwame Ture, came out of SNCC. But when they would organize in communities, they would move to the communities. They would live there. You can't organize people. You can't lead the people if you don't love the people. And you can't organize the people if you are not one with the people. When I moved out there, all these people had cats. Ugh. And I was like, why do these people have cats?
My least favorite thing.
And then they would be feeding them. They would have, I would come and I would smell like it would be tuna fish in the hallway where they had the cats. And I was like, what is with these people have cats? We got rid of all of the cats. We had animal control come out there. The cats killed the rats. We got rid of the cats. We started having a rat problem. I didn't move out because of the shootings. I didn't move out of the rats. I moved out because every building in there has black mold. Oh. We should not be allowing families and people with children to be living in buildings with black mold. And I'm willing to die for my people. I ain't gonna kill myself in an apartment with black mold when I know that it's got black mold. Like, we gotta tear them down.
With her about that?
Yes, I've had a conversation with all of them, and I've said, hey, we got to tear this down, but we're going to try and make people whole. So I wrote a grant. We have this community development block grant. It's going to get about $3.5 million. We have the money to move people someplace better. We have the money to do that. We just got to do the right thing by the people. So,
have you ever seen that movie, The Super?
No.
Go watch The Super. It's about I think Joe Pesci. And he moves. He's a super building. He's a slumlord. They make him. The judge confines him to his own building, and he has to live in it. It's a very good movie.
You gotta live in it.
When I saw you do that.
And once you live in, you're like, no, this is ridiculous. Come on, y'all. And that's why I'm fighting with my counsel now. I'm like, come on, y'all. This is not. We cannot have people. There's a lady. She got mushrooms growing out of her ceiling.
What?
So short term. I'm sorry because I'm getting too many visuals. But short term, we move people out, right? We keep people safe,
right?
So there's not loss of life. But after that, how do we get the investment that we need to make livable places, to have more livable places?
You got developers are saying there's just no way that we can build a building and sell the units for less than $1,900. It's just not feasible. At this point, I don't believe that.
I feel like we're running out of. There's a conversation that clearly is not being had, and I don't know how we're not having it about rent control. How are we not having a conversation about rent control, given what we're looking at? Like you said, it's to a point now where people are paying $1,700 for a 1-bedroom, and it almost doesn't matter where you live. Like at one time you can well, I'll live here, and it's not great, but even the not great places are charging. Yeah. $1,200 and $1,300.
This lady with mushrooms, she's being charged $1,100 or $1,400.
Is that your housing justice platform? Is it rent control?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, but here's the thing to know: at the state, because Georgia's one of these states, we're not allowed to do rent control. The state legislature has made that illegal, right? So we got to find other things to do. But what we can
overturn it.
We repeal y'all the people. If we go and we vote in some different legislators, we can overturn it. At the city level, we can start building housing again. you got to think about it. We've seen all these homeless people. We've got all of this crime happening in the city. When the Olympics came, what did we do? We tore down all the housing projects in the city. We tore down all the affordable housing that the city built, and we replaced it with nothing. Where'd all those people go?
Yeah, literally.
Clayco, Gwinnett, South Fulton. Half the people that live in Camelot moved from some affordable housing that was in Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like people need a house. People need to have, and the government is us. The $6 billion in Georgia's budget, or the $2 billion in Atlanta's budget, or the $172 million in the city of South Fulton's budget, that's our money. And if we say, I want some more speed bumps on my street, because people just be flying down the street.
I sure do.
Then it's your money.
Project.
Go get your speed bump, sis.
That's my next project.
Where you live?
Absolutely.
Go get your
People
speed
fly
bump.
like they've lost their minds. I intend to have every.
Go down to the city council meeting and say, how much a speed bump is, like $15,000? I want one.
Mm-hmm. I want one of those.
Give me my money.
I want a few things.
Run me my check. Go get it, sis. I'm here for it.
For sure. But so I think one of the questions I had about that was, and probably the same people who voted against the rent control, the percentage of renters in different parts of Georgia's. There's Atlanta and then there's Georgia. And there's a lot of Georgia out there, and I don't know how they're doing it.
What, rent control?
Yeah, I don't know how they're paying their rent. That's my question. For the same state legislators, I'm assuming the Republicans that are on the same side of, no rent control, the average annual salary or average annual income for these other counties, for White County and for Habersham County and all the other counties, I don't know how they're doing it. So I also feel like...
And they don't have a bus.
You
don't have a bus to get to your factory
Absolutely
job
not.
in Habersham. Like you taking Ubers.
Yeah.
And those get expensive.
They do. And there are people who literally have to live on rideshare. Like they need rideshare every day, 5 days a week.
Well, it's like everybody's winning except the average man.
Exactly.
Uber and Lyft now take the lion's share of the profits from the drivers. Like, so it's like you're getting there. It's like, well, I was charged $40 for this. How much you get? Oh, I got $10 off that ride when I drove you, but I paid $40. Like
Right.
they're taking the lion's share of these profits from rideshare. It's ridiculous. The whole thing, like you said, it's a system that unless you scrap the Constitution, it's working like it was designed to work. But we are down to our last 3 minutes. So in the last 3 minutes, what is next for you?
Well, I'm gonna tell you how you can find out. Everybody take out your phones. If you're watching on your phones, you want to text the number 33777, 2 3s, 3 7s. And you can text the word Fulton, Fulton. That'll sign you up for my newsletter, mobile alerts when we're doing things like the town hall that we did with Young Dro. It'll hit you back. You can follow me. It'll hit you back with all this information. You can follow me on the gram at Khalid Cares USA. I'm on the gram, Snapchat, TikTok, LinkedIn. I'm all the things. But what's next for us is we have an election coming up, and it's actually in 239 days. But who's counting? But that's when early voting. That's when early voting starts. And so, if you like what I'm talking about, we got to elect some other council people who are talking about what I'm talking about, so that we can all agree and be on the same page. And we're going to invest in our young people. We had this "It Takes a Village" town hall, and what I loved about it, we didn't just ask young people to put the guns down. We wanted to put something in their hands that was both positive and profitable. So we had we called it an opportunity fair. It was a mix between employers who were looking to hire young people for good paying jobs, $15 and up, construction jobs, $18, $22 an hour jobs, but also programs like Next Level Boys Academy that are there, and the Black Man Lab that are offer mentorship programs for at-risk young men and young men that are not at risk. We had a group of young Black millionaires there. One of them has opened like a 30 or 40,000 square foot movie studio off of Fulton Industrial called Vivid Rich. We had another guy that is Booker T. He's built this tiny home community that he financed through like crowdsourcing, $250,000 homes. Like the man made himself a millionaire. Like, so, we're showing young people that there are other ways to get the bag that don't involve violence, that don't involve breaking the law, breaking your mother's heart, or breaking a mother's heart. So, we're just going to keep doing the work, keep doing the good things. We got some amazing developments coming. So, you just get down to South Fulton and check us out.
Sounds good.
That
sounds great to me. No, but I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about, especially about your background, because I also feel like a lot of people don't, and a lot of people are very passionate, especially, it doesn't matter what age you are, but I don't think a lot of people think about elected office. Even people who may be civic minded, I love my role as an advocate. I would never want to hold elected office. I respect the hell out of it, but I also feel like there's a lot of people who could be great, especially a lot of people who don't feel very political, who probably be the best leaders, probably be the best people in government, or people who hate politics. And so I appreciate how well you've put out there the story of you running, the fact that you successfully attained office, and I hope that does inspire people, because I do think sometimes the people who really don't want it are people who probably be the best.
I don't know why you're looking at me. Why are you looking at me?
Can I just say I just gotta say real quick. I tell brothers that all the time. Like I'm out there in these streets. I drove a bus. Like 5 years ago, I was driving a MARTA bus. I'm like, they're like, oh man, they don't want me in those rooms. I tell too much truth. I'm like, that's what we need. Exactly. Well, I got a background. That's what we need, because
exactly.
you're coming with a different way of thinking. There's too many people in the room that all think the same. So maybe you should think about.
And I cannot wait for our first
Councilwoman Cherie. I'm gonna claim it. We gonna start.
Incarcerated mayor.
Councilwoman Cherie, let's do it.
She does everything anyway. And I don't know why she doesn't.
It's coming.
I gotta do this. I gotta do this first.
It's coming.
Gotta do this first. I'm one of very few formerly incarcerated lobbyists. It's hard to be a lobbyist with a record.
We're not spring chickens. So I need you.
Oh, so you got a story? I got to come back for a part 2 to hear this. Have we done this interview yet?
What's that?
The Simone Cherie interview.
We talked a little bit about reform.
Actually, we talked about Simone having her own show on the TV network, so we got to revisit that conversation. She think it's done. It's not.
Absolutely.
I told her that once I got TV network, she's gonna have to have her own show. Doesn't have to be an hour, but she has to have her own show.
I watch.
Your closing thoughts. Your final thoughts.
I don't know. I'm kind of with him. I'm very concerned about a kind of civil war on the horizon. People who feel like this country should be run a particular way, and they're not budging on it. Doesn't matter what the numbers say. Doesn't matter what the population shift is. They're not budging. I do worry about that. It does make me very concerned, because in the shadows, evil is working, and our voices in the light are getting dimmer and dimmer because people are just turning to their own devices. It's really become a me, individualistic type society. So I do worry about those kinds of things. But that's why we create our own platforms to introduce new agents so that they can come on and we can show there are more lights than darkness. So I will continue to do what I do with my platform. So on that note, we will see you guys next time, same place on the Leadership Blend Live podcast with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my co-host, Simone Cherie.
Thank you. That's good.
This was